The signal repeated in a broken loop. "This is Varelia Prime. We are under siege. Civilian casualties mounting. We request aid. Anyone, please respond." For 6 standard rotations, no one did. The Korgash marauders had reduced 3 major cities to ash. Plasma bombardments scarred the planet's lush jungles, and orbital rings now floated in shattered fragments above. Varelians were scholars, builders, singers. Their last war was 2 millennia ago and had been settled by a chess match. Elder. Thalen stood amidst the ruins of a temple archive, the air thick with smoke and ozone. He looked up as another distant explosion rumbled across the sky. "So ends another cradle of knowledge," he murmured, placing a trembling hand over the broken stone tablet he had failed to evacuate. A younger attendant, Seska, ran toward him. "Elder, the pirates breached the western perimeter. They're not taking prisoners." Thalen nodded grimly. "Evacuate the children to the mountain bunkers. If any transmissions get through, mark the city as non-viable. But do it." As Seska ran, Thalen gazed up at the stars. Somewhere out there, someone must have heard them. They had sent messages to every known species. The Galactica Republic gave condolences. The Taraxi Council sent thoughts. But one reply had come from a lesser-known, barely Class II civilization called Humanity. The message was short, 8 en route. Inahona. Stand by. Thalen had read it 4 times to be sure it wasn't a prank. He hadn't expected much. Perhaps a relief shuttle with food packs and medicine, maybe a diplomatic envoy to try negotiating with the Korgash. Humans, while new to the galactic scene, were known to be oddly overenthusiastic. Friendly, yes. Dangerous, unclear. Their war history was shrouded in contradictions. One moment peaceful protesters, the next inventors of kinetic orbital rods and shock and awe. Doctrine. Still, Thalen clung to hope. The Planetary Defense Council, what remained of it, debated how to receive the human envoy. They prepared a landing strip, arranged tea ceremonies, and gathered every functioning drone to escort the expected shuttle. A poem was written in the humans' honor, titled Whispers Carried on the Winds of Mercy. Thalen didn't have the heart to tell them the humans might not understand half of it. Above, the sky shimmered with residual heat from the Korgash orbital barrage. Smoke twisted upward in trails of grief. Back on Earth, in a brightly lit underground chamber beneath Geneva, Admiral Reyes stared at her tablet, chewing the end of a stylus. "So let me get this straight. Some species we've barely met is being slaughtered, and you mark the transmission as Tier 0? Her aide, a rail-thin analyst named Haru, nodded. UN Aid AI classified it as a mass extermination risk. Civilian death count exceeds threshold. Default response protocol mandates fleet deployment. Reyes raised an eyebrow. And no one thought to verify this before we mobilized an entire armada? Haru checked his notes. Policy 7B. When in doubt, send overwhelming force. Reyes sighed. Fine. Spin up the fleet. If we're going in, we're going in. Notify 7th Armada, 3rd Medwing, and the Diplomatic Corps. Tell Jenkins to bring the interpreter, AI, and no PowerPoint presentations this time. I swear to God. The human fleet launched from high orbit 3 hours later. 1,000 vessels. Carriers, dreadnoughts, rapid deployment cruisers. Human military aid didn't come in pieces. It came as a wall. By the time they entered FTL Jump, news spread across HumanNet. Varelia under siege. Earth responds. A commentator on the evening feed asked, "Is this overkill?" A former Marine replied, "There's no such thing as overkill, only open fire and reload." Thalen stood in the central square of what was once the capital, now a cratered expanse with a makeshift communication tower built from satellite debris, and temple spires. Civilians gathered in silence, watching the skies. Then a ripple appeared in the clouds. It began with a distant hum. Then a glow, blue and sharp, split the sky. At first, the Varelians thought the Korgash had returned. Then they saw the emblem, 3 interlocked rings with a starburst in the center, burning like a beacon on the descending ships. Not one, not 10, hundreds, some the size of cities. Others shaped like arrows, bristling with weapons. An entire fleet entered orbit in silence, casting shadows over the broken planet. The Varelians didn't know if they should cheer or run. Transmission crackled through every available channel. This is Admiral Reyes of the United Nations Fleet Response. Aid has arrived. Please identify friendly infrastructure to avoid accidental erasure. The entire council stared at the transmission in stunned silence. One elderly poet whispered, "They sent a god." Then the human fleet began deploying. Dropships rained from orbit like steel meteors, carving clean, controlled descents across the landscape. Mobile field hospitals unfolded midair. Drone carriers released autonomous aid units, while gunships formed a cordon above major cities. Thalin watched as one ship, marked with a red cross and the name Mercy Actual, landed beside the temple ruins. It hissed open, revealing an 8-foot-tall humanoid in exo-armor, holding a medical scanner in one hand and a railgun in the other. "Vitals detected," it said in a cheerful tone. "Initiating triage. Please remain conscious." Behind it, dozens of humans poured out, some setting up force fields, others deploying shelters, and one carrying what appeared to be a coffee dispenser labeled "For Emergency Use Only." A Varelian youth approached timidly. You are here to help?" The human pulled off her helmet, revealing a young woman with tired eyes and a smile that didn't quite reach her face. "You called? We came. It's kind of our thing." From the sky, more ships emerged. Some bore food, others carried weapons, and still others were designed solely for psychological operations. One such ship floated above a Korgish garrison and blared classical Earth music, Beethoven, followed immediately by dubstep. Confusion reigned among the pirates. Back on the ground, Thalin approached the human officer. We did not expect so many of you," Reyes responded through a translation device. "We didn't either. Blame the AI and our lawyers. But this is incredible. We thought, a shuttle, maybe?" Reyes shrugged. "Yeah, we don't do half measures." High above them, the Korgash fleet finally noticed the newcomers. A volley of plasma torpedoes fired from orbit. UN ships responded before the plasma had even cooled. 3 pirate vessels vanished in bursts of light. A 4th tried to escape, only to be tractor-locked and pulled backward, like a child being caught, sneaking out. The human commander smiled thinly. "Looks like they've met the welcoming committee." Thalin didn't know whether to be terrified or awed. As the Varelian children were escorted into human-built shelters, one asked, "Grandfather, are they here to destroy the enemy?" Thalin nodded slowly. "Perhaps, but more than that, they came to end the fear." And from orbit, the voice of Admiral Reyes returned once more. "Humanity has arrived. Let's get to work." The landing field they had cleared for the humans sat mostly unused, a lonely stretch of scorched stone surrounded by ceremonial banners and trays of untouched tea. The Varelians had prepared an official welcome procession, robes, flute choirs, and gift baskets containing delicately woven poems. All of it forgotten now as the sky boiled with descending warships. Thalin shielded his eyes, watching another massive vessel cut through the clouds like a falling blade. It cast a kilometer-long shadow over the valley. Hundreds of others followed, in formation so precise it looked choreographed. The air shook with controlled sonic pulses. "This is not a diplomatic envoy," muttered Counselor Girral, as she stared slack-jawed at the unfolding invasion of benevolence. "No," Thalin replied, "it's something else entirely." The first ground unit to fully deploy was a human logistics column. Mechs, drones, and soldiers in charcoal armor flooded out with alarming speed and perfect discipline. They moved like people who had done this far too many times. A Varelian elder nervously approached one of the humans carrying a massive crate labeled Emergency Infrastructure Kit, Rivian 22-1. Instant Civilization, just add water. We, appreciate your arrival, the elder began, bowing low. The soldier didn't pause. Where's your water treatment system? We'll stabilize it first. Do you have surviving medics? Good, you're now drafted. Here's a trauma kit. Don't stab yourself, the elder blinked. Drafted? The soldier tossed a helmet at him. Congratulations. Welcome to the Aid Corps. Elsewhere, a group of human engineers stared at the rubble of a collapsed hospital. Detour through the old marketplace, set up field triage, one said. Gonna need power. Jenkins, where's the portable fusion unit? In the cat. What? In the hospital cat. Command thought a giant deployable medical unit shaped like a smiling feline would soothe civilian stress response. The first engineer sighed. Right, deploy the cat. Moments later, the ground shuddered as an enormous inflatable medical complex began unpacking itself. Shaped unmistakably like a giant Earth house cat, it emitted calming meows at random intervals. Children emerged, from hiding to stare at it, confused but delighted. Inside, trauma surgeons were already preparing to operate. As chaos slowly yielded to purpose, Thalin approached a makeshift command tent, formed from a hovering canopy and 4 guard mechs. Eh? Human leaned over a table strewn with tablets and projections. Admiral Reyes didn't look up as he entered. We've secured 10 sectors, stabilized 4 more, and turned your botanical garden into a landing pad, she said. Your trees grow fast. Didn't expect that. Smelled nice when they caught fire, though. Thalin took a moment before speaking. We expected 1 ship, perhaps 2, a few doctors, maybe negotiators. Reyes finally looked up. Yeah, we get that a lot. This is an armada, correct. But why? We're strangers to you. Our planet doesn't offer strategic advantage. We have no military. Reyes leaned forward. Because you asked for help. Thalin studied her face. He saw weariness, focus, and something else, resolve, hardened into bone. Reyes continued. We were once like you, screaming into the dark, hoping someone would answer. They didn't. So now, when we hear that call, we make damn sure no one else hears silence. Overhead, a low chime sounded. A hovering display lit up red. Korgashis. Fleet approaching from the far side of the planet, reported a nearby officer. 27 vessels, full combat loadouts. Reyes didn't flinch. Activate all orbital batteries, launch fighter wings, lock down all civilian sectors. One officer snorted. They're sending 27 ships? Cute. From orbit. The first exchange was brief. The Korgash fleet opened with plasma torpedoes. Human vessels intercepted every single one mid-flight. Not deflected, not blocked, vaporized. Then came the response. Railgun slugs the size of buses punched holes clean through the Korgash cruisers. Smart missiles split and retargeted mid-flight, hunting stragglers. Drones darted ahead of the main. Formation, using burst jammers and self-guided hacking payloads to blind enemy sensors. The Korgash commander, aboard the Slaughter Wind, ordered a full retreat. His helmsman informed him their engines were no longer attached. On the surface, Varelians looked skyward as the heavens lit with falling wreckage. Some gasped. Some wept. One Varelian child clapped and shouted, "Again!" Thalin, watching beside Reyes, whispered, "We were afraid they'd crush us." Reyes folded her arms. "They crushed you because they thought no one would hit back. Now they know." In the hills beyond the capital, another Korgash strike force approached, hoping to catch the humans distracted. They found the 14th Infantry Division instead. The Korgash advanced with plasma rifles and crude cybernetics. The humans answered with exosuits, orbital-linked targeting, and what one Korgash described in his final log as a loud box that screamed and then killed everyone. That box, as it turned out, was a speaker playing Earth heavy metal on loop. Humans fought with efficiency, no wasted movement. Squad leaders calmly relayed information, even as gunfire echoed through the trees. One human, dragging a wounded Varelian out of a collapsed structure, grinned. "Don't worry, we've got nanobots, duct tape, and about 3 liters of pure adrenaline left." The Varelian, bleeding and confused, nodded faintly. "I do not understand you." "That's okay," the human said. "You're not dead. That's the important part." Meanwhile, UN medical bots swept the cities, auto-stabilizing casualties, lifting debris, and deploying adaptive shelters. One robot paused to offer a child a lollipop. When the child hesitated, it reassured him in a gentle monotone, "Flavor is statistically optimal. Fear not." The Korgesh ground assault failed within the hour. Back at the Temple-turned-Command Center, Thalan sat beside Reyes as she reviewed casualty reports. Most were injuries on the human side: burns, shrapnel, overexertion. "You fight like you've done this before," Thalan said. "Too many times. You lead as if this place matters to you." Reyes tapped a screen showing a Varelian child drawing chalk pictures on the side of a UN mech. "It does now." A soft chime indicated another incoming message, this one from the Korgesh. A garbled voice begged for surrender terms. Reyes responded simply. "Unconditional," the voice stammered. "But you are not even native to this world." Reyes smiled without humor. "That's why we don't have to be gentle." After the transmission cut, she stood. "We'll mop up the rest, then help you rebuild. You'll be on your feet faster than you think." Thalan struggled for words. You came with fire and fury, but offered us hope." "I do not understand this duality." Reyes slung her helmet under her arm. "That's humanity in a nutshell. Soft hearts, iron fists. We just don't like bullies." The sun broke through the clouds at last, casting golden light across the cratered landscape, and in that light Earth's fleet circled above, a silent promise etched across the sky. They came not with mercy alone. They came with thunder. 2 days after the fleet arrived, the Varelian capital had power again. Not fully, some sections still relied on portable fusion batteries, but enough to illuminate streets that hadn't seen light since the first orbital strike. Clean water flowed through rebuilt conduits, medical tents buzzed with healing activity, and across the ruined city squares, children were chasing hover drones with shrieks of laughter, completely unfazed by the human soldiers patrolling nearby. With weapons the size of small trees, Thalan stood at the edge of a newly raised plaza, watching as engineers deployed modular housing units with industrial grace. It took them 15 minutes to build what would have taken Varelians a month. Nearby, a construction mech carefully reassembled the shattered spire of a temple using prefabricated segments, humming a jaunty tune from Earth, a 21st century pop song whose lyrics included something about baby sharks. Thalan sighed. "Is there no solemnity to your culture?" A passing human corporal overheard. "Only on Tuesdays. Today's Saturday. It's Build and Vibe Day." The Varelians. Elder blinked. "I don't know what that means." The corporal just winked. "It's better that way." Even as reconstruction accelerated, the human military presence remained vigilant. Satellite nets monitored the far side of the planet, while stealth drones circled the outer atmosphere. Reports indicated at least one remaining Korgesh destroyer in the system, trying desperately to avoid detection. No one was concerned. Reyes had already labeled it a future training exercise. In one field hospital, Seska, Thalan's former student, now assisted human medics, translating anatomy and administering nanobot injections. She had become so comfortable with the humans that she barely flinched when one tossed her a blood pack mid-operation and shouted, "Catch!" She did, barely. After the surgery, she looked up at the towering trauma surgeon, a woman with arms like metal columns and a face that hadn't smiled in days. "You risk your lives for strangers," Seska said. "Why?" The human paused. "Because we know what happens when no one comes." "You've said that before." "Ha, but what happened?" The woman didn't look at her. "Earth happened. We were alone for a long time. She moved on, wiping her hands on a towel that said, "Get wrecked, germs." Elsewhere in the camp, a Korgash prisoner was being interrogated, sort of. The human intelligence team had set up a mobile station, offered the prisoner food, medical attention, and a chair that massaged his back. The Korgash, confused and tired, finally asked, "Is this psychological warfare?" A human intelligence officer shrugged. "Kind of. Mostly it's hospitality, but if it makes you crack, we won't complain." The Korgash tried to stay silent for exactly 7 minutes. Then he spilled every location, weapon count pirate, hideout, and even 2 access codes to their black market crypto accounts. Later, one of the analysts held up a data slate. "Hey, Commander, you want to hear something funny?" Reyes, walking by with 2 coffees, stopped. "Try me." The Korgash captain's original battle plan relied on the assumption that Earth wouldn't respond in time. Thought we were too far. Too slow. Reyes sipped her drink. Classic mistake. Distance is only a problem when you can't punch hard. The analyst nodded. "You want me to send this intel to the diplomats?" "Send it to the Marines first. Diplomats can follow." The scorched footprints. Meanwhile, the first Varelian volunteers were being trained in basic defense and logistics by a team of Earth instructors, one of whom was affectionately referred to as Sergeant Brick because he was roughly the shape and weight of a Picus. "Small fortress. We're not here to turn you into soldiers," he growled during the first session. "We're here to make sure that next time you don't need us." The Varelians looked uncertain. One raised a hand. "What if we prefer poems to plasma rifles?" Sergeant Brick nodded. "Good. Write faster, but also learn to shoot, because poems don't help much when someone's landing drop pods on your library." A week later, a Varelian patrol spotted a Korgash ambush forming on the outskirts of a rural district. Instead of retreating, they radioed for support, marked the positions, and guided a UN gunship directly onto the target. The Korgash squad was neutralized in 14 seconds. The Varelians returned to camp singing, a chant they'd picked up. From Earth soldiers, "Left, right, check the fight, make 'em wish they'd stayed polite." By the 10th day, Varelian council members met beneath the regrown canopy of the Grand Hall, rebuilt from carbon steel frames and salvaged marble. Human and Varelian engineers had worked side by side to restore it. There was no ceremony, no grand reopening. Just a quiet nod of satisfaction and a muttered, "Good enough for now." Thalin sat at the central table, staring at a holographic projection showing global aid distribution. Tiny green dots marked human deployments. They were everywhere. He leaned over to Reyes, who sat with boots on the table and a mug that said "Death Before" decaf. "Do you know what we call you now?" Thalin asked. She arched a brow. "Besides, the giants from the sky?" "Stormbringers," Reyes smirked. "I like it. Sounds ominous." "We mean it with reverence. You arrived not as diplomats, but as retribution." "We're not gods, Thalin." "I know. That's what makes it more terrifying." She chuckled softly. "You ever hear the phrase, 'speak softly and carry a big stick'?" "We have a similar saying, yes. Well, humanity tried speaking softly for a long time. Nobody listened. So now we show up with sticks the size of small moons." From above, an urgent alert blinked into existence. A Korgash fleet, what remained of it, had jumped into the system. Not near Varelia, not in firing range, just inside the edge. Cautious. "Watching." The screen flickered with their tight beam transmission. "This is Commander Grax of the Korgash Remnant. We acknowledge your superiority. We seek dialogue." Reyes tapped the comms panel. "You want terms?" "Yes." She leaned forward. "First term, unconditional surrender. Second, you live." "Maybe." Silence. Then a ping of compliance. Reyes sighed. "Inform the legal corps. Tell them to break out the nice pens." Thalin watched the display fade. "That's it? Just like that?" Reyes shrugged. Bullies fold fast when someone hits back harder. They count on fear, not persistence. And you are persistent. We're stubborn. Difference is, we build while we fight. That evening, for the first time in weeks, the Varelian sky was clear. Families gathered on rooftops and hillsides, watching the human fleet glitter in orbit like a ring of stars. Children held up hand-drawn flags, half Varelian script, half Earth symbols. One had simply drawn a stick figure holding the planet in one hand and a giant wrench in the other. When Thalen saw it, he smiled. "They think you can fix anything." Rhea stood beside him, arms crossed, gazing upward. "Not everything, but we'll sure as hell try." Above them, the Earth fleet maintained its watchful orbit, not invaders, not conquerors, just a wall between the innocent and the void, and a very loud message to the rest of the galaxy. Next time you come for one of ours, bring a bigger stick. 3 months later, the Varelian world didn't just survive, it functioned. Roads hummed with new traffic. Public communication systems had been fully rebuilt, upgraded with Earth-standard encryption and AI assistance. Where rubble once stood, there were now towering structures, Varelian in design, but reinforced with human-engineered foundations. A fusion of cultures. A union built from desperation, then hammered into something stronger. At the center of the capital, a massive arch now stood where the old square had been. Human soldiers joked it looked like someone had bent a starship doorframe into a horseshoe. The plaque at its base read, "You called, we answered." Councillor Thalen walked the rebuilt corridor of the High Assembly, escorted by a pair of Varelian peace wardens, newly trained, better equipped, and finally confident. He passed a wing that had been converted into the Varelian Human Liaison Division. Half of it was still filled with Earth furniture, too big, too square, and somehow already covered in coffee mugs and snack wrappers. Admiral Reyes stood inside, her face lit by the soft glow of a diplomatic call. She ended the transmission and turned. "Thalen," she said, "you look less exhausted than usual. Did you finally sleep?" He gave a tired smile. 3 full cycles. Your medical staff forced sedation." "Good people. I'll promote them." He stepped closer. "The Council has finished the vote. It's unanimous. We're joining the Interstellar Accord and Earth's coalition." Reyes didn't react, just took a slow sip of her now cold coffee. "You're not surprised?" "Nope. You all saw how we work. Hard to go back to status quo once you've had high-speed orbital recon and field laser dentistry." He chuckled softly. "Some of our citizens think you intend to stay forever." Reyes nodded. "We don't leave planets undefended. We rotate out. But Earth's presence? Yeah, that's not going anywhere. You're under the umbrella now." "Umbrella?" She gestured upward. "Protection, oversight, and the occasional orbital strike, if necessary." He glanced at the display behind her. A small Korgash moon fortress, once a staging ground, now showed a blinking red icon. Decommissioned. "How many others have joined you since?" Rhea swiped the screen sideways. Star maps bloomed. Dozens of systems lit up with green Earth coalition markers. Aid fleets, engineering squadrons, defense satellites. "They saw what we did here," she said. "And they realized something." "What's that?" "That maybe the scariest thing in the galaxy isn't an invasion fleet. It's a species that responds to a distress signal with enough force to break the attackers, and then rebuilds the victims' homes better than before." Thalen was quiet for a moment. "Is that your purpose now, your legacy?" She looked at him. "We used to think our strength came from weapons, from firepower, but it's not. It's from showing up. Consistently, without waiting for a strategic reason." Thalen stepped to the window. The sun was rising again, casting amber light over the bustling city. Drones buzzed. Children laughed. Human and Varelian banners flew side by side from rooftops. "It feels strange, Ikaw," he said. "We were hopeless, helpless. Now we're stronger than we've ever been, and not just militarily, culturally, economically. Morally, Ka. That's what happens when people realize they're not alone anymore." She stepped beside him. "Besides," Reyes added, "we're not saints. Some of our engineers started an underground Varelian taco stand. It's technically illegal under 3 trade laws and 1 fire code, but the food's great." He blinked. "What's a taco?" She grinned. "It's salvation wrapped in carbs." Far above, the Earth fleet remained in orbit. Its flagship, the UNS Relentless Mercy, now bore an emblem on its hull, a Varelian tree sprouting from Earth soil surrounded by stars. On board, the crew monitored long-range scans. A minor incursion was unfolding 3 systems over. Nothing serious, but a detachment was already prepping. They'd answer that call, too, because Earth had become something new, not just a planet, not just a species, a force, not a conqueror, not an empire, a message. The galaxy had heard it now, and that message was simple. Hurt them, and we will come. Strike first, and we'll end it. But if you need us, we'll come faster. 2 weeks. Later, a small pirate syndicate attempted to raid a fringe colony known to be under Varelian protection. They were intercepted by what they thought was a lone Earth scouting vessel. They surrendered within minutes, broadcasting the phrase, "We did not know. Please do not call Earth." They were taken into custody by Varelian defense units wearing Earth-designed armor and quoting Earth legal doctrine, very loudly. The pirates would later tell stories of the nightmare species that shows up with both legal paperwork and orbital guns. Back on Virelia, the memorial gardens were growing again. Replanted with help from Earth biologists, they included flora from both worlds. A rose from Earth now grew beside the sacred flame bloom of Virelia. Both adapted to the same soil. Both thriving, Seska visited often. She now wore the insignia of a planetary relief officer. Human children and Varelian younglings followed her around constantly, asking questions. "Why did they really come?" one child asked. She thought about it for a moment. "They remembered what it was like to scream into the dark," she finally said, "and they refused to let anyone else do it alone." Across the stars, other powers watched. Some were silent, calculating, rethinking their assumptions. Others took notice in more obvious ways. Entire species, once hesitant to make contact, now sent messages bearing only a symbol, the open hand icon, of Earth's coalition, a quiet request, a whisper, a call, and always the same result. The humans came. Some called them terrifying, some called them protectors, but all agreed on one thing. When Earth came, you didn't just get help, you got a fleet, you got fury, and if you were lucky, you got tacos.